Workplace mental health, how to survive a toxic job. Hi, friends. Let's settle into a conversation that might hit close to home for many of us, one that we don't always feel comfortable saying out loud: dealing with toxic jobs. It's more than just feeling bored at work or having a bad day. Toxicity in the workplace can slowly eat away at your mental well-being, making you dread each morning and brace yourself for the emotional weight of just walking through the door. Maybe it's a tense relationship with a supervisor, or maybe it's the overall atmosphere that feels suffocating. It's not just about work, it's about how work starts to affect who we are and how we feel, even when we're off the clock. You're definitely not alone in this. Many people go through this storm quietly, thinking they just have to tough it out. But understanding what's really happening can be the start of something different, something better. So, why don't you grab your favorite drink, take a deep breath, and join me as we gently unpack what it means to survive, and even heal, from a toxic workplace. Ever felt that heavy knot in your chest before clocking in? Let's explore why that happens. When we talk about a toxic workplace, we're not just referring to tough bosses or tight deadlines. It goes deeper than that. It's the kind of environment where negativity seems to seep into every corner. Conversations are filled with blame, not collaboration. Feedback feels more like a warning than a guide. You might notice leaders who manage by fear or guilt, coworkers who ignore your struggles, or a communication style that leaves you confused and mistrustful. Expectations feel impossible, and support is nowhere in sight. And over time, stress becomes a constant companion, whispering anxiety into your daily routine. Have you ever noticed how a bad work environment can stick with you, even after hours? It's no coincidence. It's built into how our minds and bodies respond to stress. Psychologists have long tried to understand what happens when people are trapped in environments like these. One theory, the job demands resources, JDR, model, tells us that every job has challenges, but also tools to handle those challenges. When the demands outweigh the support, our energy gets drained and burnout starts to creep in. Another theory, the conservation of resources, COR, says that we're constantly trying to protect things like our energy, time, and emotional strength. But in a toxic setting, those precious resources get used up faster than we can restore them. These ideas help us see that it's not about being too sensitive or not strong enough, it's about the system around us chipping away at our resilience. Have you ever worked hard to stay strong but still ended up feeling completely drained? Let's look closer at why that's so common. We don't need to rely on theories alone. Real people share real stories that make the impact of toxic workplaces come alive. Think of Sarah, a talented marketing executive who found herself constantly criticized and overlooked. At first, she tried to push through. But over time, she started doubting herself, her skills, even her worth outside of work. Her job didn't just affect her career, it followed her home, into her relationships and daily confidence. Stories like Sarah's remind us that emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and self-doubt aren't just abstract ideas. They're painful realities for so many people trying to stay afloat in difficult work environments. Can you relate to Sarah's experience? You're not alone, and you don't have to face it without tools to help. Sometimes, while waiting for systemic change, we find little ways to survive day to day. Some people begin by setting boundaries, like defining when the workday truly ends, even if emails keep coming. Others open up to friends or therapists, creating space to process their experiences. Mindfulness, whether through breathing exercises, journaling, or quiet reflection, can offer small but powerful breaks from stress. And for some, the path forward includes building new skills, not just to leave, but to have options, and to feel empowered again. These steps don't solve everything, but they can bring a sense of control back to your life. Which of these approaches speaks to you? Maybe you've already tried one. Let's think about what's helped you the most. Of course, real healing needs more than just individual effort. Organizations also play a massive role in shaping our work experience. The best companies invest in their people, offering resources like mental health programs and leadership training focused on empathy and emotional intelligence. When managers are trained to listen, respond, and recognize their team's efforts, everything starts to shift. Creating a space where feedback flows freely, where appreciation is visible, and where mental health is taken seriously, these are more than policies. They're signs of respect. And respect is the foundation of well-being at work. Has your workplace ever shown that kind of care? Or maybe the opposite? Let's reflect on the difference it makes. Beyond what happens in the office, our cultural and social environment also shapes how we deal with toxic jobs. In some places, speaking up is seen as disruptive, especially when keeping group harmony is valued above all else. Add in financial pressures and the fear of unemployment, and it's easy to understand why people stay silent. Sometimes, even talking about mental health feels like a taboo. These outside pressures make it harder to take action or even admit that something's wrong. How have your own cultural or societal surroundings affected the way you handle work stress? It's important to name those influences as we move forward. Now, let's talk about what happens when toxicity goes unchecked for too long. It doesn't just fade away, it leaves scars. People start experiencing long-term health problems like anxiety, depression, and even physical conditions related to stress. Their careers might stall either because they're too drained to grow or because the environment limits opportunities. And personal relationships? They can take a hit, too, when irritability or emotional exhaustion spill over into home life. This is why it's so important to take steps, not just to survive, but to protect what matters most. Have you seen the long reach of a toxic job in your life or in someone close to you? You're not alone, and there's still hope. Recovery doesn't look the same for everyone, but it starts with small steps toward healing. For some, that means embracing self-care in a real and intentional way. For others, it means reaching out to a therapist or counselor who can help navigate the emotional aftermath. Some people start exploring new job opportunities that align with their values and mental health needs. And then there are those who take what they've learned and advocate for change, not just for themselves, but for others still stuck in the storm. Every small move is part of a bigger journey toward reclaiming peace. Have you started that journey already, or are you just beginning to think about it? Either way, you're in the right place. Let's close with this: toxic workplaces are a serious challenge, but they don't have to define your story. By understanding what's happening, finding ways to cope, and calling for better, healthier environments, we can all play a part in shifting the culture. And more importantly, you deserve a workplace that supports your well-being, not one that chips away at it. Are you ready to take a step toward a better work life? Let's keep this conversation going, because you're not alone, and there's a path forward, together.